everyone, and welcome back to the Travel Mug podcast. I am Jen, joined as always by my partner in podcasting, Megan. We are so excited to bring you another beginner's guide this week, all about Dublin, Ireland. So, Megan visited a few years ago. It's on my radar for this year, so we'll see if we get there. But let's dive in with a short history of the city. So, the origins of the city of Dublin can be traced back more than 1,000 years, which is mind blowing to this person from a baby country.
Right. Our big baby country.
Yeah. So, this area was originally settled by Vikings in the 9th and 10th centuries. By the 12th century, Dublin was under the control of the Anglo-Normans after the invasion of Ireland. Dublin, as we'll mention later on, became the center of English power in Ireland. And in 1801, it became part of the United Kingdom. However, the 1916 Easter Rising was a major turning point for Irish independence, and this rebellion sparked a series of events that would lead to the creation of the Irish Free State in 1922, and Dublin was its capital and remains the capital today of Ireland. And today it is the economic hub of Ireland. And in 2024, an estimated 6.6 million international visitors came to Dublin, and the European Commission named it the European Smart Tourism Capital in 2024. So I guess I'm not the only person planning to head to Dublin.
You and a few million others. Smart tourism capital. Never heard of that award.
Yeah. So let's talk about getting there. That's usually where you have to start. So if you're flying into Dublin, the Dublin International Airport is Ireland's busiest airport and only 10 kilometers away from the city center. So that's pretty convenient. You can take a bus or a taxi into the city. I also learned that you can take a ferry to Dublin from Holyhead in the UK on the Stena line. The journey is approximately 3.5 hours. The prices vary. From what I was seeing, it's like £134.30 for a car and a driver, so nearly $250 Canadian or 175 USD. So Dublin does have public transport to get around, including buses and trams, but it seems like a super walkable city. Megan, how did you get around when you were there?
Yeah, so we spent a couple of nights in Dublin. Otherwise, we had rented a car to see the other portions of the country that we were able to make it to. So when we arrived in Dublin at the end of our trip, we actually went to the airport, dropped the car back off at the airport, and caught a taxi to our lodging, and then a taxi back to the airport at the very end of our trip. While we were in Dublin, we walked the entire time. We did not need to use any other means of transportation, and we had good weather, so rain was not a factor, which was a blessing.
Nice. Yeah.
So besides getting around, of course, I think oftentimes besides whether your transportation to and from the country you're visiting, obviously how to get around. Next is where do you stay? And I think that that's such a big piece and something, of course, to be done in advance. Now, during our stay in Dublin, we did stay at an apartment. We booked it on booking.com. So I think at the time I didn't feel badly thinking, oh, it isn't an Airbnb, but like, of course it was. It just wasn't on Airbnb. So I can't change that now. So onward we must go. But however, it was really centrally located on Capel Street. So just a few blocks from the River Liffey, which runs through Dublin, and was within walking distance of all the things we wanted to see and do, which I guess is probably why we booked it. The most popular rated areas of the city, so the Temple Bar area for fun, but what I would also assume would be pretty noisy.
Right.
I'm just guessing, but I'm assuming. But it's really according to your age and what you're looking for and your tolerance for noise. So that is up to you. Trinity, which is nearby to the college, Dublin Castle, and the Molly Malone statue, plus just across the river from the post office, and I will explain later the significance of that. There's Marion Square area, so be sure to check out the park near there, as well as the Oscar Wilde statue. Phibsborough So this is near Griffith Park and the National Botanic Gardens, and it's a little bit more north in the city. And then, of course, central Dublin itself, such as Portobello, which is close to St. Stephen's Green and some great shopping, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well. And if price is prohibitive for you, or you prefer your accommodations to be a bit removed from the center of things, which some people do, there are options just outside of Dublin, which are just a few stops away via public transportation, such as Dalkey, Howth, and Manahide. So those are just a few options if staying in Dublin isn't right for you.
Yeah, it sounds like it's pretty easy to like get around. So no matter where you're staying, you can find your way to all the things that you want to do.
Definitely. So you're there, you've got your accommodation. Now, what are you going to do? So, of course, like a lot of capital cities, there's so much to do. And the Guinness Storehouse, we will start there. So, the Guinness Storehouse, there is a lot to see, and it has 7 floors. They are
Yeah, that's a
serious.
lot.
And I know they're very serious about it. And if you really want to explore, plan to be there 3 or 4 hours or even more, especially if you do the brewery tour. So we bought our tickets in advance, same day. And by booking in advance, we did save money. So that's something you could look into as well if you sort of know when you would like to go. You can do a myriad of things. So you can do a perfect pour, they call it, by taking part in the Guinness Academy, where they actually teach you to pour Guinness properly. Peter did that. He has a certificate he's very proud of.
Ooh.
I know, I know. You can have a beer with your picture made into the foam called a stoutie.
Mhm.
Yes, you can visit all of the exhibits, of course. Honestly, there's just so much. There are 2 tiers of tickets, as there is with everything. Standard and premium, which each includes certain aspects of the storehouse experience. So check that out on the website to see what you want to do there and book in advance. We'll put the link in the show notes. There's a lot to read through and a lot to sort of understand what you'd actually like to do while
Right.
you're visiting.
So, do you like Guinness, Megan?
I don't love beer.
Okay.
Peter really enjoys a Guinness. Of course, yesterday was St. Patty's Day as we record, and he, of course, celebrated. He has more Irish heritage than me. I only have 2 or 3%, and he's up in the 30 percentiles
Mhm.
range. So I did have a few while I was there. It felt right.
Right.
If that makes sense. We went to a
Yeah.
few pubs, and I'm like, yes, I'll have a Guinness because we're in Ireland, but not
Right.
typically. No. What about
Right.
you?
I also am not a beer person, so I was wondering if you thought that the Guinness experience is a good experience for someone who doesn't love Guinness.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, we definitely went because Peter enjoys it, but also it was a huge experience with a lot to see and do. If you don't care about Guinness at all, you probably shouldn't go, you know?
Right. Yeah, okay, that's
That's
fair.
my advice. I wouldn't. Cool. So the next thing I want to mention, and this is a pretty quick excursion, is to walk across the Halfpenny Bridge. So the Halfpenny Bridge, or the Halfpenny Bridge, which is for pedestrian use only, and it's officially called the Liffey Bridge, and of course goes over the River Liffey. It was built in 1816, which makes it the oldest pedestrian bridge. It gets its name, of course, because between 1816 and 1919, pedestrians had to pay half a penny to cross the bridge.
Oh.
Yes, yes. It you no longer have to pay that steep toll. It is made of cast iron and it was newly painted when we were there, and it won't take you long to cross it. But of course, it's one of those historic things that sort of people recommend that you do, but will be very quick, but still pretty cool to walk over a bridge from 1816.
Yeah, that's super cool.
It is. Next, I would suggest to explore St. Stephen's Green. It is a beautiful green space in Dublin with deep historic meaning for Ireland. There are many paths, flowers, trees, and a really great spot overall to relax, play frisbee, read, or have a picnic. However, during the Easter Rising of 1916, which was an attempt to overthrow the governing British, St. Stephen's Green was one of the spots seized by the Irish Citizen Army. So not only do you get to sort of be out in nature while you're there, but it's also a deep part of Irish history as well.
Yeah, cool.
Now there's pedestrianized shopping streets. So Grafton Street and Henry Street, and they are directly really close. Actually, when you come out of the St. Stephen's Green at one of the corners, you're actually on Grafton Street. So very close to the same area. You can do some shopping on these pedestrian only streets, of course. We walk down these back to the city center after visiting the park, and nearby is also a mall of the same name, St. Stephen's Mall. And don't miss out on the eclectic side streets off of Grafton and Henry as well for smaller shops and markets. So, not as sort of commercialized. And there are also, of course, lots of pubs and restaurants along the walk as well. So, it's great to maybe do, in the evening after you've had a day and get out and just sort of stroll around. It could be a great option that way. At Trinity College, it seems weird to recommend for people to go to a college, but there are various tours you can book there, including seeing the college campus if you wish, or a guided tour of the Book of Kells and the old library. And in our style, we chose the self-guided tour to see the Book of Kells and the long room in the old library, which honestly was one of my favorite things I experienced in Dublin. I'm not sure of the cost in 2019 for us to do a self-guided tour, but the self-guided tour now is €25 per person for 90 minutes.
Okay.
And the Book of Kells, do you know what, if you may have looked it up since you knew we were going to do this, but did you know what this was?
I definitely have heard of it, but like I can't like pull it out of my brain of what it actually is, you know?
I totally do. And I didn't know about it. But and also I'll share for those who also don't know right now, because of course I didn't. It is written in Latin and it is a religious script from medieval times. So it contains 4 Gospels of the New Testament and would have been crafted by Celtic monks around the year 800. I wouldn't expect to say 800, so therefore I was going to say 18, but no. Let's go back to 800. So it is obviously an important part of history, and you aren't able to take photos, but of course Peter did not read that and got one anyway. So I guess you can check out our socials when the episode comes out to see a picture of the Book of Kells. Now the long room is just that. It is a long room with high ceilings, and it is essentially a library. I'm sure you may be thinking like big deal, but it is really beautiful with dark wood and vaulted round ceilings. And even though it was busy, it was quiet. And I just loved being able to walk around and sort of like take it was like dark teak wood or something. I don't know what it's made of, but it was very calming. And I loved it. It was definitely worth the price of admission alone. The Book of Kells, I guess, it's cool to see history, but the the long hall was my favorite part. So a lot like our home city of Halifax, Dublin has no shortage of pubs. So don't despair. You will find a spot to have a pint or two or more. It's up to you. Temple Bar is the face of a lot of pubs and nightlife in Dublin. So when you see or hear about the pub culture, Temple Bar is usually brought up. We didn't go in as it's kind of touristy because it is so popular, but we did snap a picture of it, which is kind of my point. That's why people go to look at it. It's that popular that people do. It is family owned and seen as a staple for Irish pubs, so it's definitely an option for you. The oldest pub in Dublin is the Brazen Head, established in 1198. I think these dates are so hard for us is because our Canadian brains can't wrap our heads around it.
Cannot. Absolutely cannot.
No. And it used to be a meeting spot for historic Irish rebels.
Ooh.
I know. Now you can go and listen to some live music. It sounds a little more calm.
Yeah.
But these are just a few examples. There are a lot more, including Merchant's Arch, which has a beautiful stairway, lively atmosphere. We enjoyed it there. But just trust me, you'll find a spot somewhere. Pub culture is huge there.
Yeah.
And the last thing,
that.
yeah, I know. It is kind of reminiscent of Halifax because people always talk about Halifax that way, but I don't think we have anything on Dublin.
No, I'm sure we don't, but it is funny. We recently rewatched Rick Steves' episode, like featuring Dublin, and I think they were in Temple, but I can't remember. But just the music that was playing, I'm like, oh, this is Halifax.
I know. I love that connection for sure.
Yeah.
And the last thing I want to mention, which is going to seem odd, but again has a historic aspect to it, is the general post office called On Post or An Post. Normally, we wouldn't put a post office probably in our to-do list of things to see in a city. However, this isn't just any post office. We've referenced earlier the 1916 Easter Uprising. Well, the post office actually played a pivotal role in that. So not only is it the oldest functioning post office headquarters in the world, which alone makes it stand out, it was actually the command center for the Irish uprising and is a symbol of Irish nationalism. One of the columns outside, or sorry, on the columns outside, actually, not just in one in particular, you can actually see and feel bullet holes in the cement columns. And it was quite surreal seeing and like touching that for yourself. And again, another symbol of Ireland where there's just so much history and it all dates back so far.
Yeah, that's super cool.
I know. So, of course, this isn't everything to do in Dublin, and we personally could not see and do everything even that we wanted to do with a little bit of a limited time there. So, there are a few other things I know you wanted to mention that you found that you thought could be interesting for our listeners to maybe want to add to their itinerary.
Yeah, and I just want to mention that when I was doing my research for this part of the episode, I feel like it really highlighted the difference between the things that I like to do when I travel and the things you like to do when you travel.
I know.
Because I was like, these are all things that I want to do that you did not do.
I know. I know. That's what makes us a dynamic duo.
I guess so. That's why we don't travel together.
That is correct. Although someday I'm sure we can come to an agreement, but
I'm sure. Okay, so let's dive in and we're going to start with the Dublin Castle. So it's one of the most important buildings in Irish history. The Dublin Castle was the seat of the English and later British rule in Ireland from 1204 to 1922. So it served as a residence for the British monarch's Irish representative. So today, the Irish government uses Dublin Castle for important national events. And since 1938, each of Ireland's presidents has been inaugurated in St. Patrick's Hall, which is the grandest of all the state apartments there. So you can visit Dublin Castle. So you can choose between a self-guided tour or a guided tour that allows you to see the state apartments, the coach house, and the castle gardens. Or you can roam the castle grounds for free. So self-guided tours are about €8 for adults, and they can be bought online up to 14 days in advance. But guided tour tickets are only available on site, and they did not list a price for those. So it's a surprise, I guess.
I love that. You never know what you're going to get, I guess.
No, I guess that. So next is the National Gallery of Ireland. It is a free art gallery with over 16,300 artworks. Their collection includes well-known artists like Monet, Picasso, and Tite. They also offer free lunchtime talks that kind of center around certain works of art, which sounds like a really great way to learn more. I don't know if they're always Irish artists, but the most recent one coming up is an Irish artist. They even offer painting classes, although those are not free and need to be booked in advance. But I really do love wandering through an art gallery, especially when it's a free art gallery.
We love that.
Sounds like a good place to hang out if it's raining or just like not great weather. So next up is the Irish Rock and Roll Museum Experience. It's nestled right in the Temple Bar district, just where you would expect it to be.
Correct.
So this museum showcases the artists and bands that have shaped Ireland's musical landscape. So you can see the rehearsal studios to see where iconic artists like U2 and Sinead O'Connor got their start. And in the jam room, you can feel like a rock star and actually play the instruments, which is pretty cool. Admission is a bit steep, though, I have to say. It's 22 to 26 euros for adults, and all the visits to museum are by guided tour only. And they encourage people to book in advance. So if you know you want to do this, definitely book it online in advance. So lastly, let's chat about Kilmainham Jail. Jail is spelled Gaol, just so you know when you're Googling it yourself. It opened in 1796 as the new county jail. It held common criminals and also political prisoners involved in Ireland's struggle for independence, including the leaders of the 1916 Easter Rising. 14 of who were executed by firing squad in the Stonebreakers Yard. So the jail was closed in 1924, but preserved as a national monument in the 1960s. Today it is a museum run by the Office of Public Works. So access is granted by tour only. You must pre-book your tickets, which are released 28 days in advance. And during the tour, you'll learn about the 1798 rebellion, the 1916 Easter Rising, the Anglo-Irish War, and the devastation of the Irish Civil War. So lots of history to dive into in Dublin if that's your thing.
Definitely. And like, I'm sure there's tens of things plus that we haven't even scratched the surface on. So that's definitely just a highlight. Now, of course, something we love to discuss here on the podcast is food. We're into it. Traditional Irish food, though, might not be up your alley, Jen. It is pretty hearty, using solid ingredients of the landscape, such as potatoes, of course, vegetables, and meat. They enjoy a stew in the Ireland. And I mean, we've all heard of Irish stew, so it kind of just makes sense. So during our stay in Dublin, we shopped at Tesco, the grocery store, a lot and made meals as we had that option. But there, of course, there are many amazing restaurants in the city offering cuisines from around the world, but of course, including Irish staples. I definitely recommend trying an Irish breakfast, which we were able to experience at a few of our stays throughout the country, although always avoiding the black pudding if it was offered.
Fair.
Now, no, Irish breakfast, it is a dish that consists usually of bacon, sausage, beans, grilled tomatoes, mushrooms, eggs, toast, sometimes black or white pudding, sometimes potato mash, and of course, lots of tea. We stayed at a bed and breakfast in Ballycastle, and I think the breakfast lasted like 2.5 or 3 hours. And she just kept bringing more food, and it was just like we didn't know what to do because of course it was just the two of us, and we didn't want to be rude, but it was food enough for like 8 people.
Oh no.
We were like, we don't know. We're like, so let's just sit here a bit and try to like let the food digest so that we can eat a little bit more and not seem rude anyway. It was a hearty breakfast.
Yeah.
As we discussed, of course, pub culture is huge in Dublin, so pub food is readily available. Some highly rated restaurants serving Irish cuisine itself are Old Mill Restaurant and Wild Restaurant, Wild with an E. And Dublin also has its share of Michelin-starred restaurants, 1 and 2 stars. So if you are wanting that kind of experience, you can definitely find it in Dublin. Quick little bit of research. They pop up for you, so you could definitely, I'm going to assume, book those in advance.
Yeah, I'm going to assume that too.
Yeah. Now, we all love a fun fact, Jen, so tell us some of those about Dublin.
Yes. So the name Dublin comes from the Irish Dublin, meaning black pool, which refers to a dark tidal pool where the river Poddle entered the Liffey? Liffey?
Sure.
On the site of the castle gardens at the rear of Dublin Castle. Dublin is home to 770 pubs. So you have a lot to choose from.
It's a whole lot of pubs.
Yeah. And like we said, Dublin's oldest pub has been operating since 1198. A long time.
Yes.
The remains of Saint Valentine himself, the patron saint of love, are buried in Dublin's Whitefriar Street Church. So that's interesting. Mm-hmm. The author of Dracula, Bram Stoker, was born in Dublin in 1847.
Gotcha.
So now I know. The rock band U2 was formed in Dublin in 1976. And a fun fact about me is I strongly dislike U2.
It's a fun fact about you. Now, I have to say, 1976, I was born that year, so go U2. However, I don't love them. I don't strongly dislike them, but I wouldn't choose a U2 tune.
Okay, I will turn them off. When I
see, I'm not that far, but I respect your musical interests or disinterest.
Disinterest? Yeah. Bono makes me angry. I'm sorry, Bono. I can't stand it.
Bless your heart, though.
I'm so sorry.
This is hilarious.
So, The aforementioned Guinness factory that we mentioned earlier has a 9,000-year lease on the building, which was signed in 1759. The annual payment is just £45, but that factory is going to be there a long, long time.
Talk about rent control. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
I'm pretty sure that's a really good deal.
I'm 100% sure. Wow. Especially
Yeah.
building is huge. The grounds are huge. That's whoever, I don't know if founder of Guinness himself worked that out, but kudos to whomever did that.
Yeah, they did a great job.
They did indeed. Well, listeners, that is it for this beginner's guide to Dublin. As we always say with beginner's guides, we have not covered everything, nor all of the popular things, nor all of the things that might interest you, as we are all different people. This is just a jumping off point to use in your research to figure out your trip. And what do you want from a trip to Dublin, Ireland? So that part is up to you. Thank you, as always, for listening and being here. When you aren't listening to our episodes, you can find us on social media at Travel Mug Podcast and on our website, travelmugpodcast.com, where you can email us with questions or guest ideas. We'd love to hear from you. And until next time, safe travels and bye.